Welcome to Meet the Candidate. I'm Chris Clark, President and CEO of the Queen Creek Chamber of Commerce. Today we're joined by Mark Stewart, candidate for the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks so much for having me. This is great.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a small business owner, family man. We were just talking about our kids. I've got a 23-year-old and a 22-year-old, both graduated from ASU. Grew up in Chandler Unified School District, and I own a couple of businesses. Been on Chandler City Council now for 7 years, and I term out in January. And it's been an incredible, time. We're fortunate to live in a great community like Chandler and East Valley, for that matter. It's just been it's been a great place to raise my kids. We had intended to be here for about 2 or 3 years. I was working for a Fortune 50 company, and was in that sort of corporate path of go here for a few years, go there for a few years, and we grew roots in Chandler. And just, it reminds me of Queen Creek, 20 years ago. Everything, they still had the natural odors of some of the farms, and but we had intel, right. And we had the leaders before me had a vision for what they thought Chandler could become, and coupled with the Chamber of Commerce's and the state and things, Arizona's become an incredible place to live, work, and play, and so we're just delighted to still be a part of it.
That's great. What type of businesses?
So I own a marketing agency, so we do teams like the Arizona Rattlers was one of our clients. I also own men's health clinics, so we will have 6 men's health clinics in the Southeast Valley. We're opening our first 2 in Chandler, and then Arcadia Biltmore. So those are for older guys like me that that need a little help with maybe hair loss or peptides for joints and things like that. So it's just focused on a man cave. It's my little pitch, my little ad. It's a man cave setting, but it's a good business. So we bought into that franchise with a partner, and so we're excited about that. But I got to tell you, being a small business owner, the pressure from not only the city, but from the state and the federal government has been just overwhelming. The things that we have to fill out and the fees that we have to pay and the challenges that we have with making some minor adjustments in our clinics has been eye-opening to see how hard it is for our business owners just to get open and much less stay open. And I understand there's rules and things like that, but man, it seems like it's coming at us from all angles. So being in that spot, being a small business owner, I get it. There's a lot of pressure, and you couple that coming off of COVID and all the challenges with that. It's been we need elected officials that understand that, I think.
And I want to follow up with that in just a second. But so there you were, you moved to Chandler, and with the idea that maybe you weren't going to stay so long, and then you end up on the council. So how did that happen? Yeah,
so that's a great story too. So I was kind of starting to pay attention to politics back in, probably the early 2000s, late 90s, and wondering why it was kind of funky. It was kind of messed up, and I recognized that at the federal level, they're not really listening to us. And sometimes the same thing at the state. They tend to listen to, especially with Citizens United, they tend to listen to, whoever's funding their campaigns. And somebody wise said, if you want to change government, you have to be involved. And so I started going to meetings and started paying attention to the city council meetings and things like that. And a handful of people said, you would be great for city council with your small business background and your corporate background. And so I thought, no, I'm not doing that. And, enough people asked and enough people encouraged me and said they would help that we jumped in. And, you're not supposed to win your first time around, but I think our messaging resonated with folks, and then hopefully I've stayed true to what I said I would do, and that's fight for small business owners and create a community of innovation that Chandler's become. Yeah.
So over those 7 years, quite a bit of growth, as you were mentioning. So that was all about managing the growth in the town, the city. And you did mention that you're terming out. So yeah. Why the County Board of Supervisors? Yeah,
that's a great question. I think a lot of the things that we've done in Chandler, we can duplicate in Maricopa County. I think one of the best things that has happened in Chandler is empowering our staff to be the best they can be. I was just in the elevator at City Hall the other day, and it was in writing. the word customer service and treating our residents like customers. And I think that Chandler embodies that. And I think going to Maricopa County, bringing that culture to that community or to that office building, I think could be helpful. I think there's a number of other things too. I think what I talked about earlier about the pressure from small businesses, I didn't even throw the county into that, but there's regulations at the county level that sometimes I think, I'll just say it, the bureaucrats dream up. And they haven't lived in the shoes of a business owner before, and they don't understand the pressures that we've got, especially for small business owners. Like, we don't have staff to do some of the things that the government requires. So fighting at that level, I think, would be important for us. And, I'll be perfectly honest with you, Maricopa County has been in the news for a number of things over the past 5 to 7 years. And I just want to get us out of the news. I want to do some things that create transparency and trust so that the public feels like we're doing a good job like they do in Chandler. So if I can emulate some of the things that we're doing in Chandler at Maricopa County, I think bringing that fresh energy to that chair would be valuable. And, frankly, it's my campaign is a grassroots campaign. And, people trust me because I do what I say I'm going to do. And that's kind of my Missouri roots. And so that's what my plan is to do in Maricopa County without getting into all the weeds.
I was going to say, what are some of the key points that you want to see changed?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we did in Chandler that was extremely valuable is that you don't have economic opportunity and growth if you don't have safe streets. And so we challenged our staff to find a way to add police officers. During the protests that were going on in 2021, we went the other direction and hired more police officers. And the result of that has been incredible. We have the lowest crime rate in the history of our city, violent crime. And that's a testament to the men and women of the police and of staff making that happen and finding the budget to make that work. For whatever reason, the county's been short sheriff deputies for a long time, and recognizing that we've done some things in Chandler that I can do in Maricopa County. One, to find the budget to add more deputies. I think creating a safer community and safer environment for Maricopa would be important. I think I'm a budget hawk. I think, for example, we were 60 million in the black, in 2022-23 fiscal year. And so I challenged staff, like, either we're going to give the tax money back to the taxpayer, or we're going to find ways to move projects up and invest in our water infrastructure, invest in our roads. We went that direction, right? So, and that's good. So we were able to not do as large of a bond back in 2019, 2020. And we were able to use general fund dollars to do some road projects and really invest in our infrastructure. And I think, the result of that is we have the lowest cost of service of any East Valley city for water, trash, all those things that go along with it, because we've invested beginning, not to get too long-winded here, but I look at the municipality as a business, right? And we sit as a board of directors that creates vision and mission for that business, just like I do for mine, right? And so it's staff's task, it's the CEO's task, Josh, great city manager, to execute that vision and mission, and working with the mayor and our other council members. We've put together a pretty good soup in Chandler, and I think taking that to Maricopa County could be huge for us. Yeah. And
so at the county level, you'll be representing about 250,000 people roughly per district. It's quite an area from Tempe all the way over to us in Queen Creek. And so what type of projects do you think specifically you'd like to see the county working on in that area?
Well, I think road infrastructure is going to be huge. I think Prop 479 is paramount to the success of our city and of the state, for that matter, because so being an advocate for that, I already talked about the sheriffs and things. Yeah.
Prop 479 is the extension of the sales tax that will be used for transportation infrastructure across the county.
Correct. And that's not a tax increase. It's just keeping
an extension of the existing tax.
Yeah. And so being a champion for that infrastructure growth is important. We've got I-10 down to Casa Grande that needs development. We need 347 needs help. We really need help out here. You guys are in the biggest cul-de-sac probably in the country, and it's going to limit your economic opportunity. Access to your job markets, namely around the airport, are going to be a huge initiative. I think that Maricopa County is going to have to step in. Hunt Highway will need some significant improvements as we try to alleviate some of the pressure for this particular area. Because I think Queen Creek, like I said, is the next Chandler. Like it will be, especially with the airport. I think you'll be a bigger growth opportunity for the state than we were. So, I like to dream big. I think that Arizona is one of the top 5 states in the entire country for economic opportunity. I think Queen Creek over the next decade, because of the airport gateway, can be the tip of the spear for that. And so that creates opportunities where, we create more jobs, which means that our kids can live with us, right? There's jobs here. I've been fortunate that my kids, when I first started on council, I didn't think my kids would have a job here. And I'll just be honest, Governor Ducey changed the dynamic of what Arizona is. And whether you appreciate his politics or not, Arizona is a different state than it was 8 years ago or 10 years ago. And it's been fortunate for me because now my kids both have jobs here. One's in Tempe, and then one's at Edwards Vacuum. And I don't know if that would have happened 10 years ago. So,
quite a difference from when we were dependent on housing construction to keep the economy going.
Yeah, absolutely right. We've diversified our economy, which is, I think, one of the reasons that especially the East Valley isn't feeling that crunch that I think inflation has created. And so, and that takes us to the sort of this macroeconomic stress that's being put on our small businesses and our families. And so going to the county, I'm mindful of that. It's one of the reasons I brought forth a grocery tax discussion, of like, where can we find ways to help our neighbors, right? It seems like states are always asking for more. And in this case, maybe we could have pumped the brakes a little bit, and we did, and we put that money to infrastructure, so, yeah.
So I think there's 3 or 4 people as of right now running for this district on the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. What do you think sets you apart?
Yeah, I think my experience with Chandler sets me apart. I think owning my own business is a big piece of that. Doing my own P&Ls, doing my own budgeting, and I think the fact that I don't always swim in the same direction that everybody else does. I'm not necessarily a black sheep, but I certainly ask questions that I think my neighbors. I always do the backyard test. Like, what would my neighbor say if he knew we were doing X, right? What question would he ask or she ask if we were doing Y? And so I ask those questions at the dais. I ask those questions in executive session or in study sessions to basically advocate for our community. And so I think the big thing is that I haven't really folded into what can happen with elected officials is they can become part of the machine that is government. But our job as a board of directors of the corporation is to ask the tough questions. I think I'll do that. I think I'm out with the community all the time. I not just at the events, but I'm at Little League, first pitches. I'm in the community all the time, and I have the energy and the passion, like deep down, the passion for good governance that I want to bring to that. And that means there needs to be accountability at all levels of government. And we've done that in Chandler, and we'll do that at Maricopa. I think those are the big things. But without question, I think being a small business owner and understanding the pressures that we're all facing and being able to go in and remind staff, hey, pump the brakes here. There's a lot of things going on that you may or may not know about. I think, for example, like, when we do ordinances for, let me think of an example here. We did some ordinances around like trimming your trees back, right? And things like that. And one of the questions that I asked, well, what are we going to do for the family who can't get on a ladder? What are we going to do for the single mom that's working 2 jobs, like my mom did, that's working 2 jobs, that's trying to make ends meet? Now you're asking her that she's got to hire a landscaper because she can't get on a ladder to this. So let's think about these things before we just leap into them, because it all sounds good on paper, right? But there's some real world experiences that people have to deal with when we create new rules or new regulations. So I'm always thinking about what can we do to be a facilitator for opportunity, not necessarily a regulator or a rule maker. So I think that's what I'll bring. So that doesn't make me a fan favorite of staff sometimes, but that's what I think my role is as an elected official, is to hold on for a second. Let's make sure that we've thought this through. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time today. Anything that we haven't covered that you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, for those of you that are watching and for you, the foundation of why I do this is because I believe that we live in one of the greatest countries in the world, right? And I do believe that the system of government that we have works, but it works when it's limited. Right? When government tries to get its fingers into too many things, you have issues like the housing crisis that we had in 2007, 2008. We have the inflationary issues that we're having today because of the printing of money and going to side projects. And we're seeing this chasm of wealth deepening between the haves and the have-nots. And I just want to be an advocate for, that mom and dad or that business owner that feels like nobody's listening. And I'll leave you with this story. When somebody comes to Chandler and they're frustrated with, and this sounds minor, but it's something that's important to me, and they ask me, why are we doing this? And I go to staff and I say, why are we doing this? I feel like I'm advocating for my neighbor, right? And that I take responsibility for, because that's what I ask for their trust to do, and I don't try to shirk that responsibility and just get along. I'm not a get-along guy, and so I do it in a professional way. I follow the Robert's Rules of Order when I want to argue a little bit, and I do it respectfully. But I think we need people at every level of government that are advocating for our neighbors, and that's what I've done. That's what I'll do. I just think about something as simple as, for 4 years, I tried to remove some regulations around gazebos in our backyard. That's a property rights issue. If you can get connected with your neighbors and say, hey, I'm thinking about putting up a 12-foot gazebo, I don't need the city's permission to do that, right? If it's not going like with big, deep stakes into the ground where there might be pipes and things like that. And we were able to get that removed from our code, right? So that you can put a gazebo in your backyard that you want to put in there. It's not limited by size or height, anymore. And so that's a little bitty thing where I've done what I can to remove regulations for my neighbors and pushing back on some of the stresses for some of the code ordinances that were being introduced. So I don't know, I could go on forever because I've been doing it for 7 years, but I'm grateful for the community that we have. And we have incredible neighbors, and I'm a responsive government official, and I love to meet with people and listen and email back or take phone calls. So that's me.
And how do they get in touch with you?
Well,
what's the best way to get more information about the campaign?
So the best way is on my website at Mark. Well, you can ping me on my website, but I'm at Mark Stewart AZ, and my 877 number is 877-959-8590, and I can answer any questions that you've got and fill out any surveys, whatever you want to hear. I'll be straight up and straightforward.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for doing this. Absolutely. This is so important to vet through your candidates and know who's doing that. And thanks to all your business owners and folks that are part of the chamber. Soon we'll be part of the chamber as for our game day men's health clinics when we're opening up one here in about a year.
That'll be great.
Yeah.